Hey everyone, welcome to our guide on Magnus the Magnocerous. We are PhysicsMathMan and LuminousInverse, and today we'll talk about Magnus' skill build, playstyle, and his item choices. This guide focuses on mid-lane Magnus, though he also does pretty well in the offlane. Magnus is a melee strength hero best suited as the team's ganker, initiator, or semi-carry. He has one of the best ultimates in the entire game, and a whole array of AoE spells. He brings also a powerful buff which greatly increases your carry's DPS. With only a few mid-game items, Magnus is a great combo starter and a combo breaker. Let's take a look at his skill set. Shockwave is a nuke which goes in a straight line and damages all units that come within 150 units of the cast. Both the damage and cooldown benefit from levels without changing the mana cost. Empower is a buff which grants the beholder both increased damage and a cleave attack. Two things to keep in mind about this spell are that only 3 people can be buffed at any given time, and the bonus damage is calculated off base damage, meaning that it does a lot more on a tiny and a lot less on a shadow fiend. His third ability, Skewer, is Magnus' super rhino charge, which drags all units within 125 range along with him. Caught enemies are damaged and slowed. Along with destroying trees, Skewer lets the woolly mammoth cross mountains and valleys without a problem. This means that it can be used to cliff your opponent, which might leave them stranded for a little while. Be aware that when skewering, although the travel speed is pretty slow, you will almost always finish the skewer. Behold and tremble before the mighty Magnocerous' ultimate. Reverse polarity attracts and stuns all enemies within a large 410 distance around him. This spell is the starter of many a wombo combo. In fact, getting a multiple hero RP is often followed by a massacre, leaving 3 or more enemies dead before they even have a chance to breathe. Equipped with a blink, the best combination for Magnus is as follows. Blink to an ideal spot, turn to the direction you want to skewer, quickly RP, and skewer to a good location, and then finish with a shockwave. Facing the direction you want to skewer before you RP helps prevent that awkward moment when you have stunned multiple enemies and have to run around them to set up for a good skewer. In the case that you haven't gotten blink or it's on cooldown, then you must skewer into RP and then finish with a shockwave. Both the mid and offlane Magnus builds rush to maximize shockwave by level 7, since it brings wave clearing, killing potential, and a shorter cooldown for a static mana cost. Skewer is then the second skill to maximize. If you are playing mid lane, a first level should be spent on Empower, as this greatly increases your last hitting and denying capabilities. Leveling this will allow you to compete against more traditional ranged mids. A point in Skewer by 4 not only opens up an escape mechanism, but you can also land a kill if you manage to charge your opponent under the tower. If you are in the offlane, you will most likely not be able to last hit, and so you can only grab gold via shockwaves. For this reason, getting skewers at level 2 and 4 for the sake of safety is the way to go, so skip Empower. In all cases, of course, you should get RP by 6 and 11, it's just too good of a spell to skip. Starting from the early game, the major goal of Magnus is to farm a Blink Dagger as soon as possible, so we can start initiating team fights. He does this by utilizing the high damage and spam ability of Shockwave to farm. Against strong ranged enemies, his form of lane control is simply just the Shockwave, so he is highly dependent on getting runes to recharge his bottle. Make sure to increase your chance of grabbing the rune by spamming Shockwave about 15 seconds before the rune spawns. This will push the wave into the enemy tower, allowing for you to easily cap it in your own bottle. Besides giving him more mana, all active runes make Magnus way more effective before his dagger. Haste, Invis, and Double Damage are all excellent runes for ganks or solo kills, and Illusions are nice for stacking different neutral camps for future Shockwave spams. Even though farming a dagger is important, keep in mind that you still have your Skewer into RP combo, so stay active and always be a threat against the enemy team. Once you have obtained your Blink Dagger, lead your team into fights whenever reverse polarity is up. Keep out of enemy vision before that first dagger RP combo, so that the dagger is a surprise. Like most big AoE initiators, hiding in fog and out of enemy vision increases your chances for a huge ultimate. Also, if your ultimate is down, or you just don't want to use it, Blink Skewer is still a very good way to start a gank. Just keep in mind that between his turn rate and cast animation, Blink Skewers can be pretty tricky to land, so keep on practicing. he should still keep farming mid-game and look to get bigger items. For instance, if you can add Force Staff or Arcane Boots to your arsenal, you can spam Shockwave for days and also be better at repositioning yourself during team fights. In the late game, one common problem is that many Magnus players try to focus too much on initiating with a good RP. Although this is a good method, sometimes you want to let the fight break out and look to counter-initiate when appropriate. You can afford to be more patient late game since items such as BKB, Force Staff, or Refresher give Magnus much more room for error. You'll notice that your enemies will be actively trying to stay spread out at the beginning of team fights, but afterwards they tend to clump up, and that's really when you want to go in. Stay calm and look for this best moment for reverse polarity. As most big ultimates go, prioritize the most important heroes on the enemy team. This is generally the enemy carries in the late game, of course, but can also be the disabler or the crowd controller. Lastly, don't forget to buff your teammates with Empower. You are the leader of your people. Never stop empowering them. Let's look at a few example games. In game 1, the starting items I go for are 2 GG branches, and I got pulled a Tango. I know I'll be laning against Huskar, so I want to have a bottle as early as possible. As is probably expected, I have a really rough laning stage, so I pick up a pretty late Arcane Boots. But even without Blink, I stay active and look for opportunities to help my teammates. I pick up an important kill on the enemy mid solo, and that caught me up with my Blink timing. I give the enemy team a surprise RP to start a fight, and get my teammates 2 easy kills. Blink really shows its worth by letting me stay mobile and pick up another 2 kills after that. I begin working on a Force Staff, but in retrospect it was a bad decision. Global Silence and Veno plus Ogre's damage over time are really annoying, and they all did a great job to prevent or delay my RPs. Despite still doing okay in fights, I wish I had gone for BKB right after my Blink instead. After that I pick up a BKB and then work into a Refresher Orb, and they really allowed me to crowd control the enemy team, despite the enemy Silencer having his own Refresher and Ag combo. Even though all these expensive items helped out, I think the reason I did well this game is because I was really patient with my RPs, and I always counter-initiated when they jumped on my carry. In game 2 I start with the same items that I did in the first game, but now I'm against a Storm mid, GG branch and a Tango. In retrospect, I think a Stout Shield might have given me a little bit of an easier time in lane during the first 2 levels. I thought I was going to be pretty passive for the most part, but Storm was too aggressive in harassing me and gave me an easy skewer. After that, I had smooth sailing into a quick Arcane Boots and then a Blink Dagger. I had hoped to do more with my first Blink usage, but I botched a couple of my spells. We ended up trading okay, but this fight showed me that I needed to be a bit more mobile in my fights, so I decided to go for a Force Staff. In our pushes, I played extremely patient. I knew my sniper had the Aegis and also had a long range attack, and so they would either clump up on him or our supports. Once they clumped, I dropped the hammer. We end up sweeping the fight and push down a couple towers as a result. At this point, you'll notice that I've been pretty reserved with my RPs the entire game, and I don't think the Ursa expected me to solo RP him. Taking one of the enemy carries out let us pick off another T2 tower for free. The Force Staff was ultimately really useful, and it helped us pick up a couple extra kills here and there. To no one's surprise, I went for a Refresher Orb after. No matter how bad your game is going, keep in mind that Magnus can be a threat simply with a Blink Dagger. The situational items of Magnus cover pretty much all the bases, but Force Staff and Refresher are generally good choices if you don't know what to get. If your team desperately needs more damage, try out some of the more hard-hitting items on Magnus as well. If you've forgotten everything we just said, here's a few things you can take away from this video. Number 1. Always try to reverse RP into Skewer. It'll be hard to do in the beginning, but allowing your entire team to beat on them for an extra second or 2 makes all the difference, especially in the early game. Number 2. Before you get Blink, you are completely dependent on those runes. Try and grab every one of them every time they spawn, and be aggressive if possible. Number 3. Be patient with your RPs. The enemies will try to spread out initially, but often they'll clump up eventually. They almost always do. Magnus is the ultimate team fighter. He can change the game at any point. Equipped with only a Blink Dagger, your enemies better get ready to have a personal view of that precious horn. Hey guys, PhysicsMathMan here. I hope you enjoyed this hero guide. But don't forget, Relax Your Fine sends out videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So like and subscribe and stay tuned.